Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. Now, the last review that I did from this brewery would have appeared on the channel about a year ago, October or November of 2024, and these guys are quite an up-and-coming brewery. In fact, they're still a very new addition to their local beer scene, but they've been building a very good reputation for themselves. They do quite a wide variety of different styles, but from what I can gather, they've become really well known for their different kinds of IPAs. Now, the beer that I'm going to have a look at from them today is a style that I haven't tried from this brewery before. It's one they're supposed to do very, very well, and from what I understand, it's also one of their kind of core range beers. So I think this one is a nice one for us to cover on our return to this brewery, and it is supposed to be very, very nice. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head to Japan. We are going to go to Fukui Prefecture, which is a little bit to the north of Lake Biwa and Kyoto further south, and to be specific, we are going to go to Fukui City, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Our Brewing. So this particular beer is called Lupulin Rex. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, like I said earlier, this one is supposed to be one of their core range beers, and the last one that I reviewed from these guys about a year ago was the Dino King, which is a West Coast IPA if I'm not mistaken, and I was really quite impressed with this one. So I think this is one of the new Japanese breweries that we really need to keep an eye on. And like I've said in previous Japanese reviews, I think the standard of craft beer in Japan over the last few years has really skyrocketed. There's some very good breweries now actually, and that quality of brewing is becoming a lot more widespread, which is great to see. So yeah, that's why I love reviewing Japanese beers for you here on the channel. So check out these guys if you get the chance. But yeah, as I said, an 8.5% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Our Brewing in Fukui City, Fukui Prefecture in Japan. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Our Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future, because this brewery is on my radar at the moment. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist, which is getting added to quite regularly, of course, these days, because we get a good selection of Japanese beer here in Hong Kong, and I'm very often over there visiting my son, and I love bringing Japanese beers back and investigating new breweries and things like that. And yeah, do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Our Brewing once again then. So yeah, there we go. So Our Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Fukui City in Fukui Prefecture in Japan, a little bit to the north of Lake Biwa, which is to the north itself of Kyoto. Very beautiful city, and I do recommend you go and visit. But the company was founded by Tomohiro Okada, and they released their first beers in August of 2022. Now, Tomohiro apparently first encountered craft beer during his time studying abroad in Ohio in the American Midwest, and apparently one day he just went into a brewery and asked for a beer, but then he was a bit flabbergasted when the waiter then asked him which one, because he didn't realise there were so many different kinds. But he said that the waiter very kindly guided him through the different beers that they had on tap, and that this experience was a little bit of an epiphany for him, and he said that after this he became obsessed with the taste of craft beer and learning more about it, including how to brew it. So he also loved the fact as well that he could interact with so many new people over a beer, and this experience of being in America and trying all these different beers really stuck with him. So when he returned home to Fukui, he really wanted to bring some of the American craft beer culture back with him to his local area and introduce people to different kinds of beer. So Tomohiro apparently used his holidays from work to work at another local brewery called Echigokura and to gain some experience in the industry, and for the first few months he actually released the Our Brewing beers in collaboration with them, along with a few other local breweries in Fukui Prefecture and slightly further afield. But the first regular beer that was produced under the Our Brewing name was called the First Batch, and this was released in November of 2022. It was a pale ale. But a little bit later on, in January of 2024, they opened their new brewery and tap room in the Minia food hall in front of Fukui Station, and the brewery itself is equipped with a 1,000 litre brew kit from Laugh International, which is a Japanese company that apparently has equipped many craft breweries across Japan. I'll need to look into them a little bit. They could be an interesting thing to explore. But yeah, over the last few years, they've been continuing to distribute their beers further afield across Japan. I don't know if they've really started exporting yet, because they are still quite a small operation. But yeah, as of November 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 80 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I said, a lot of people have told me these guys are very good within the IPA style category. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Our Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done as well. So yeah, that's that for your history section. We can relax and breathe a little bit, can get my breath back, and we can look at the beer itself. So yeah, I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. I think Tomohiro must like dinosaurs, to be honest with you, because a lot of the beers have these kind of dinosaur or paleontology themed names. The camera doesn't like the artwork on this one, to be honest though. You know, the camera doesn't like silver very much, to be honest with you, but there you can see the name Lupulin Rex there. But yeah, you can see the Tyrannosaurus Rex head outline too. But yeah, plain silver top on the can there. This one is 355 millilitres, which is quite a common measurement in Japan actually. I'm not sure what it's derived from or whatever, but yeah, 355 millilitres is a pretty common measurement there. And there you can see on the side of the can, yeah, osake, so yeah, alcohol. But yeah, it looks really nice, this one, I have to say. And it says on the side here, beers bring neighbours together. So yeah, that's going back to what we said about him loving spending time talking to others over a beer. But yeah, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double IPA, this one. The hops in this beer are Citra, Idaho 7 and Crush, all in cryoform. They've got Sabro Dynaboost as well, and then Motueka. We're quite familiar with all of these hops. Citra we know very well, about 14% alpha acid American hop. It gives you that lovely kind of juicy mango quality, a little bit of lime in a New England IPA. Idaho 7 is the same alpha acid, same origin, and it's going to give you mostly like, it's going to give you a bit of juicy mango, but lots of passion fruit, apricot and pineapple, I would say, the softer tropical notes. Crush was HBC 586. Normally, if I'm remembering the number right, it's only just had its name changed to Crush, even though it's been around for about 10-15 years, something like that. It's a really interesting hop. It's quite orangey, but it's got lots of tropical fruit in it as well, and quite a woody green component. Sabro we know very well, another American hop, 16% alpha acid, quite mandarin-y and orangey, but a lot of coconut as well. Then you've got Motueka from New Zealand, an 8% alpha acid hop, and it gives you this really juicy, very bright limey character as well. So quite a big mix of hops in this one, I have to say. So this is quite a bold core range beer, in fact. So yeah, I think we should just get this out and have a look at it and see what it's all about. So yeah, Lupulin Rex, 8.5% ABV. Very interesting hop bill in this, as we've just been through. Let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. So let's do it. I think we can put the whole thing in, eh? There we go. So yeah, that looks pretty nice, I have to say. And there we are. And I'll tell you something, just open up the can, you get a whole waft of aroma out of this one, but we'll come back to that in a wee second. So yeah, before the head disappears with this one, we can safely say that it's poured with about a 2/3, 3/4 finger of a lovely, frothy, kind of soapy, perfect white head there. You can just look at that. Medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, more soapy ones just kind of floating further on top of that. But yeah, colour-wise, this beer looks very, very nice. I would describe this one as being akin to like a very bright yellow mango juice sort of colour. I always like comparing New England hazy IPAs to different fruit juices, because that really is just what they remind me of, actually. But yeah, colour on this one, I have to say, it looks very, very nice. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a dark colour beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to the IPA style category, you very seldom have to care about that, those latter two variables that I mentioned there. But yeah, you can see the head on this one is just fading away to be a sort of thinner, more foamy layer. You've got that nice kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one. One or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, but a few just coming up and breaking the surface of the liquid as well. But yeah, the level of haze in this one's quite interesting. You see I put my hand behind this. This is certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that we've come across, in fact. So that's worth mentioning in this one. But we have seen ones like this before. Usually the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer, but it certainly is safe to say this is not the soupiest and gloopiest of hazy IPAs that I've come across on the channel, and especially recently too. But as long as it tastes good, who cares? We're just making observations. But yeah, all in all, it looks very nice. It's pretty much in keeping with what you would expect from a New England or hazy IPA, as they're calling it here. So I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. The other thing we should mention with this though is that it is triple dry hopped, and they're saying they're using the dip hop method with this one as well, which is quite an interesting thing. We'll maybe need to do a video on hopping methods and how hopping in a beer actually works. That could be an interesting thing to do. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this one. Let's move on to the aroma section of the video then. So let's have a wee smell of this one and see what it's all about. Oh, nice, okay. Right. I'm going to say straight away, this one that's in very, very nice condition. I've had this beer in the fridge for about a month or so. I brought this one back with me from Japan in October. But yeah, aroma-wise, it does come across as really nice. It's a very soft and juicy New England IPA, but it gives you everything you want. You've got that lovely bready backbone, a wee bit of the kind of nice green component, and then yeah, lots of fruity, juicy character to this one. So yes, it's pretty interesting, I have to say. Now, my first impression of this one is that it's a little bit more barley leaning and a little bit more kind of wheaty leaning, I would say. So yeah, whenever we look at New England IPAs, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of these beers. So you're going to look at the kind of farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those two elements are a little bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs, because the style started off as basically a farmhouse IPA, but as the style has moved elsewhere and evolved, the focus is more on like wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things. And as I said a second ago, this one for me really leans toward that more kind of barley malt bread and wheaty side of things. But there is a wee bit of oaty character to it as well. But yeah, you can kind of tell from the appearance of this one, it's not too heavy in the wheat and the oats, I would say. But yeah, it goes together really nicely, this one, and the aroma. So let's just break that aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So yeah, the backbone of this beer. You've got a lovely sort of fresh, white bready bread crust coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. A little bit of woody character, as you very often get. Some Jacob's cream cracker. Yeah, I love that about this one. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. Wee bit of woody character, Jacob's cream cracker too, and then yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really quite nice in this one. So it gets a big thumbs up from me on that little bit of grainy backbone that it has. Above that though, you do get a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready kind of note out of the beer. There's absolutely some like fluffy, fresh white bread in this one. I'd be very curious to know what malt they're using in this, because it smells a little bit more German rather than anything else, but there's also a few kind of English elements to it. It has that wee bit of a more European dryness to it, but there's also elements of like North American smoothness in there. So as I say, I'd be very, very curious to know what malt they're using in this one. As far as I'm aware, the Japanese still aren't producing much malt themselves, apart from, you know, in Hokkaido and things, but yeah, I'm really not sure how common Japanese produced barley malt for beer actually is. But yeah, aroma wise, the bready, the malty character in this one, for me, it strikes me as being a little bit more European, but the wheaty side of the beer seems a little bit more North American, to be honest with you. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in this one, as we say. You've got the fluffier fresh white bready character sitting on top of the crust, and then yeah, you can smell a little mix of wheaty and oaty character coming out of this one. So the wheat, as I say, comes across as being a little bit smoother, which makes me think more North American wheat rather than anything else, because European wheat tends to be a little bit more bitey. North American wheat is a little bit smoother. It could actually maybe be Australian malt in this, you never know. But yeah, the malty side of this one, I think the bready character is very, very smooth. At the back of the nose though, you do get a little touch of that wheaty bitiness in this one, which gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so lovely bit of more dense wheaty white bready character in this one. I'm getting a little touch of oatiness in this one, and when it comes to New England IPAs, oats are always quite interesting because they give you a very rough indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is going to be. So essentially, the fresher your beer is, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the older it is, the drier they smell and taste. So you can definitely get a little bit of that out of this one. So yeah, for me, the oaty character is definitely there. You can smell it's a wee bit creamier, but some of the drier character is starting to come out, and then you've also got a little touch of sweetness to the malt base here. So there's a wee tiny bit of that Werther's original butter candy butterscotch, and then there's also a little bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. Maybe a bit of Golden Promise in this actually. I would not be surprised if it's Golden Promise that's in here. There's just something very familiar about it. But yeah, I think that covers what we need to say about the malty backbone of this beer. Now the yeasty side of things. Now the yeasty component in this beer for me, it's quite, it sits at the back of the nose of course, but for me it's got a good mix of like wholemeal brown bread. So yeah, good little mix of wholemeal brown bread in there, and then yeah, it's got a fluffier sort of white bready character to it as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, fluffy, yeah, a little bit more of a dense, fluffy white bready character to it. It's got a wee bit of a more crackery sort of character as well. So the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is really, really quite nice. Now, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Let's go to the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, when it comes to hopping your IPAs, there are three different types of hoppings that you can use. You can use early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour or so of the wort boil. That gives you the vast majority of your bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour or so of your wort boil. Gives you a wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and again, it gives you a very bright green component. So when it comes to New England IPAs, these guys rely on late addition and dry hopping for the most part, which is why they're softer and more juicy. West Coast IPAs tend to rely on, they tend to use all three, which is why they're deeper, danker and more oily. This beer is also using cryo oil and Dynaboost and things like that, and these kind of lupulin oil products, if we can call it that, or cryo hop products, these ones tend to smoothen out the green component, and you can really detect that happening in this particular beer. So yeah, green component in this one, there's a lovely little touch of earthiness in the beer there. So you have a little touch of earthiness to it, wee bit of woodiness, you've got a lovely floral aromaticity, but very, very smooth, I have to say. But for the most part, your green component is quite, yeah, for the most part, your green component is actually quite how would we say, leafy and like freshly cut grass, kind of. That's probably a good way to describe it, in all honesty. So yeah, all in all, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice in this one. But yeah, that's everything we need to say about the green component. When it comes to the fruity side of things then, this beer, it is very tropical leaning, and that's kind of what you'd expect with this one when you've got Crush, Citra and Idaho 7 in there. But yeah, you do get a little touch of the coconut from the Sabro, right enough, and you get a wee bit of the more citrusy character into the aftertaste. But yeah, there's lots of there's a wee touch of the peach in there, big juicy mango, softer passion fruit as well, apricot, pineapple. You've got all of these sorts of things, and then yeah, like I say, there's a little touch of lime, a little touch of a kind of mandarin-y orange, and yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this one, I think, is really, really quite nice. Yeah, aroma-wise, this beer is really quite nice, but it's quite, as I say, it's quite a barley malt leaning New England IPA, this one, but it's got everything you would want from this style in its aroma. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Lupulin Rex, an 8.5% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Our Brewing in Fukui City, Fukui Prefecture over in Japan. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, kanpai. Oh yeah, that's really nice, actually. Very soft, very juicy, and actually a very clean and sort of slick New England IPA, this one. Hazy IPA, as they're calling it. This one's interesting because if I was drinking this blind, I would maybe put this one a little bit more toward, you know, that kind of grey area that they call just American IPA. Because it's got a little bit of natural haze to it. It definitely leans more toward the New England side. But at the same time, it's maybe about 20%-ish like West Coast, just the sweetness that you get out of the malt base in this one. There's quite a bit of biscuity character to this, and it does give you that wee bit of lingering sweetness. And yeah, it's not quite as creamy as some of the other New Englands that I've come across. But this is really nice, actually. This is one of these ones that's a bit dangerous. As I've often said, the Japanese like their craft beers to be very clean, and of course it's a volcanic island. The water quality is excellent. And as a Scot, and someone who lived in Sweden for a very long time, I'm quite sensitive to that. I do like very, you know, you can taste when there's good quality water in there, and this beer is certainly no exception to that. And the Japanese love their beers to be drinkable. It's just a kind of preconception they have about beer. It should always be drinkable. So no matter what style of beer you drink in Japan, you're always going to get this element of just cleanliness and drinkability to it. And this beer, you can certainly see that with. It's almost dangerously drinkable. When it's 8.5%, it just goes down so nicely. So yeah, going to say big thumbs up to Our Brewing for this beer. This is really nice. Let's just break the beer down then and describe the flavour for you a bit more in depth, as we always do. We'll go to the middle third of your palate first. So yeah, the middle third of your palate, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely, fresh, white bready bread crust there. As you move further forward, you've got a little bit more of a kind of woody character coming out of this one, which I think is great. Then when you move further forward from that, you've got a wee touch of there is a little bit of a Jacob's cream crackery element coming out of this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, little bit of wood, little bit of Jacob's cream cracker on top of it. This backbone is very, very common in these kinds of beer. Next up from that, you've got a layer of a more wholemeal brown bready sort of character coming out of this one, but that's quite small on this, and again that gives you a wee touch of graininess into the aftertaste with the beer. But yeah, the next layer up, it's like a fluffier, fresh white bready character that's coming out of this one. So yeah, fluffier, fresh white bready character coming out of the beer, and it actually does have a little touch of sweetness to it the more that you go into the aftertaste with it. But yeah, that fluffy, fresh, white bready character, it builds a little bit in density, and it shows you a wee bit of that, it shows you a little bit of that just sweetness into the aftertaste too. But the next layer above, the fresh white bready character in this one, you definitely get that more dense, wheaty white bready character. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. You can feel that the wheaty character is very, very smooth further forward on the palate, but yeah, a little bit further back, it's got a wee bit more of it's got a little bit more of how would we say, wheaty bitiness to it in a sense. But sitting on top of that more dense wheaty white bready layer, you can feel the oaty side of the beer. So yeah, down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that nice oaty creaminess, and as you move out toward the edges, of your tongue there, you've got a little bit of a kind of oaty dryness to the beer as well. So that's quite interesting in this one. But the oaty dryness is quite minimal. This beer is very, very fresh. The oats for the most part are quite creamy, but they don't feel overly prominent in the flavour of the beer, I would say. Like I said earlier though, this one does have quite a little bit of sweetness to it. It's quite a biscuity New England IPA, this one. So if you go to the dead centre of your palate there, you'll feel that little circle, which is like a really concentrated, oily McVitie's Digestive biscuity character. And then round the edges of that, it's just got a little bit more of, it's got a little bit of a more kind of dry McVitie's Digestive biscuity character as well. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together in this one is something that I really do quite like too. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. And I think maybe the reason we're getting a bit more sweetness out of this one is because this beer is just a little bit lighter in its body, because the wheat and the oats have obviously been kind of toned down a little bit, this one. Because as I say, it is a very barley malt leaning New England IPA, this. But I think after that, we've covered everything we need to about the middle third of your palate. So let's go to the back third of your palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate and the middle third of your palate are going to show you very similar flavours, but just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the fluffier, you've got the brown bread in the base, the fluffier barley malt white bread in the middle. Then you've got a wee bit of the more dense wheaty white bready character sitting on top of that. So the way that that one goes together, I think, is really quite nice. But and that does give the beer just a little bit more dryness. But then when you go to the back third of your palate, you can feel the white bready bread crust is in there. It's a little bit more it has got a little bit more dryness to it. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker just sitting on top of that as well. Then you've got a fluffier wholemeal brown bready character just sitting above there, which was a little bit lighter, drier, taller and more airy, I guess you could say, than in the middle third of your palate. You can say the same about the white bready layer, which comes out above that. It's just a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry. Then above that, you've got a more dense, wheaty white bready character in there, which has a little bit of a kind of bitiness to it as well. So the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I have to say, I think is really quite nice. And just you get a little bit of the oaty character just creeping on top of that as well, which is good. But let's focus on the yeasty character on top of everything else on that back third of your palate. So the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's quite interesting. At its core, it feels like it's a slightly sweeter wholemeal brown bready kind of character that you're getting out of it. So yeah, definitely at its core, it's got a little bit of a more dense wholemeal brown bready character. As you move further out from that, it's like a slightly sweeter, fluffy white bready note that comes out of this one. Then there's a layer of sort of crackery character and some wholemeal brown bread, some wholemeal white bready bread crust there, and wholemeal brown bready bread crust. Actually, it feels a little bit sweeter than that. So yeah, the yeasty character in this one is quite nice, and that adds a little touch of dryness to the beer into the aftertaste. So definitely, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit. So yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of this beer quite nicely. So I think that's really nice. The malty base in this one I actually do really quite like. It kind of reminds me of Ale Farm Brewing in Denmark. Actually, this beer is quite like that, but I'd say a little bit better than a number of the ones that I had from there, to be honest. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness in there, but it's very, very minimal, very smooth as well. As you move further forward, you do get that little bit of woodiness from the crush in this one. You can definitely get that, but then yeah, as you push further and further forward along the sides of your palate, lovely, yeah, there's a lovely sort of floral aromaticity to this one. Quite smooth as well though, I have to say, so yeah, lovely floral aromaticity, and then round the front curve of your tongue, the beer is just a little bit lighter and more grassy, but it's got a little touch of zestiness to it, and I think that's most likely to come from the Motueka in this one. But yeah, it's quite leafy actually, but very, very smooth green component. So let's go to the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off the flavour section of this video then. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in this one. You've got the brown bready character in the base, the barley malt white bready character in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bready character on top. Then you've got all the layers forming the base of that front third of your palate. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, wholemeal brown bread, fluffier barley malt white bread, the more dense wheaty white bready sort of thing, then the more kind of creamy oaty character coming out of this one. But then yeah, lovely oily bubble where the fruity juicy esters just roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that fruity side of things with this one. And I would say actually the fruity side of this beer is one of the highlights of this one for me. I think this is one of these beers where it's really well done. It does nothing unexpected of the style, but it's just the way that everything merges together in this beer, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, so in terms of the fruity side of the beer then, if we go to the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a lovely little touch of like peach sitting on top there. Underneath the peach, you've got a lovely oily, juicy kind of mango out of this one. So the peach, I think, is going to come mostly from the crush, actually. So the peach comes from the crush, the oily mango-y character comes from the citra. There's a wee bit of softer passion fruit underneath that. Then as you move further forward to the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got apricot-y characters coming out of it, pineapple in there as well, and yeah, I think those softer tropical notes are going to be your Idaho 7. I do get a little touch of coconutty character out of this one into the aftertaste. That's the Sabro, there's no question about that. And then yeah, when you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's all about the kind of mandarin-y, tangerine-y sort of orange. That's your Sabro, and then as you reach the Sabro kind of occupies the back half of that front half of the front third of your palate, if that makes sense, and it lingers there on top into the aftertaste. And then yeah, just behind the very front tip of your tongue, you've got that big, juicy, zesty, limey character coming out from the yeah, that one comes out for sure from the Motueka actually. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice in that regard. The fruity character in this one is absolutely lovely. It finds a really nice balance between tropical and sort of citrusy and zesty. But yeah, there we go. I think this goes together really very, very nicely. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. I really like this one actually, and I'd be very curious to go and try it on tap. You know, maybe on one of my next trips to Japan, we'll take a wee trip up to Fukui City and film at the tap room of this brewery. That would be pretty awesome, I have to say. So definitely something I'm going to keep in mind. Yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, I would say that it's top end to mid-bodied. The carbonation on this one is very, very smooth. It's quite an oily New England IPA, this one, or hazy IPA. So it's got a bit more, it's kind of clean, but it's kind of oily. It's got a wee bit of slickness to it. And I think the way that all of that goes together in this one is really quite nice. As I say, it reminds me of some of the Ale Farm beers from Denmark that I had a couple of years ago. It really reminds me of these, and it kind of feels to me it's a bit more like, it's one of these ones that you could maybe put more into the kind of grey area of American IPA rather than being a full like New England hazy creamy sort of thing. But I really like this one. As I say, this one's a bit more barley. The oat and the wheat in this one I think have been toned back a little bit in comparison to other beers in this style category, but I think it works. So yeah, this one in terms of IBU, I think it's about 30. You know, the green component in this one is very, very smooth, and it does give you a lot, you know, the cryo oil and Dynaboost in this one are going to be responsible for that. So I think it's about a standard 25 or 30 IBUs. There's very little bitterness to this beer. The malt base is a wee bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, quite oily and sweet actually on top of that. And then yeah, you've got all these lovely oily fruity characters coming out of it. So yeah, again, very, very impressed with this beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So that's a West Coast IPA and a hazy IPA that I've tried from these guys. I think we need to have a look at something from the lager side of things, or from the darker end of the spectrum from this brewery next time. So I'll need to have a wee look at their website and see what else they have on offer. But yeah, this one, the Lupulin Rex, is definitely worth checking out. So let's leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Lupulin Rex, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Our Brewing in Fukui City, Fukui Prefecture over in Japan. As I say, this brewery is quite up and coming, so they are definitely worth checking out should you get the chance. But I think we need to try a few more different styles from this brewery and see what those are like as well. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Our Brewing as well, and we will definitely be returning to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, check out my social media, check out Our Brewing social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and kampai. Ciao just now.